أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم. This is the I think this is the fifth session, if I'm not wrong, from our discussions. And in the last session, we just entered the discussion and the topic of Tawheed, the monotheism, which is the most important topic in the Islamic literature and Islamic studies. And I said that we're going to take 7 steps, inshallah, in this journey. And we've talked about 3 steps of the 7 steps. And tonight we're going to take 2 more steps, inshallah, from the steps I mentioned last time. So for now, today, tonight, maybe for you this evening, we will talk about 2 important things. The first is the Quranic perception and worldview on Tawheed, on the monotheism. As I said before, many of the problems comes out from the misunderstandings about the religious issues and religious thoughts. It's mostly about bad conceptions and bad imaginations from the principles of the religion, especially Islam, that we're talking about. So tonight we're gonna, have some modification on that imagination and conception. And inshallah, after we raise the argument, the strong arguments to prove the existence of God, this imagination will get much better, inshallah ar-Rahman. And the second topic in the step tonight is to talk, if I don't know if we had enough time, I have decided to talk about the science and its role to prove the existence of God. And is it able for any science or any experimental perception to prove or reject the existence of God, which is an interesting topic. And we're going to, inshallah, mention the Stephen Hawking and people likes of him who raised some scientific arguments to reject the existence of God. So for the first step, Tawheed, the first step was to talk about the Quranic perception on the Tawheed. Inshallah, I get help from one of the best books of Shahid Mutahhari, as I mentioned last session, and which is written on the Islamic worldview, monotheistic worldview. Tawheed, sometimes, as I said before, sometimes is by some even religious people portrayed as a, some relation between a master and a slave, just normal masters and slaves. It's just about you're always asked and obliged to do very hard jobs, and you may need to refrain from this worldly life, and there is no spiritual, meaningful, relation between this person and the God. And this misunderstanding, this misconception had a big role in the New World and shaping new theories about the religion and about the necessity of the religion. Many people today, they believe that when they want to talk about the religion, they just raise the history of the religion, especially the history of the Roman Catholic Church in the Europe. And they say, this is a religion. This is the footprint of the religion. This is, this is what we've been through, by the religions. So if you want to present this to us, we're going to reject it. Or at least we're going to say that this religion and this conception must be left, in the corners of the houses, and it must not have anything to do with the society. But in the Quranic perception, we have some practical, spiritual connection between man and God. And nowadays, even in the West and even East, those Eastern mysticism, like the Buddhism or Shintoism, or like the mysticism from the India, they are coming up, and people are talking about, are going to the meditation and things like that, because this gives people some solace, some real peace in this very mechanized and modernized societies. We want to say that Islam has both functions, as I said before. individual function and the social function. So you can get solace and peace from Islam and spirituality, not just some hypothetical or mental solace. No, a real solace and a real peace. And in the same time, you can build your society upon this Islam and upon this religion. So to understand that, I want you to look at this page of this book by Shahid Mutahari, and I'm going to share the screen now. So this book, as I talked about before, the monotheistic worldview. Here, Shahid Mutahari is mentioning the Islamic conception of the world. Please bear with me and listen to Shahid Mutahari here very carefully. It's a very brief conception of the Islamic worldview, very brief, explanation of the Islamic worldview, which is so rare in other books. It's so hard to find this very brief but very accurate explanation from a great scholar. He says the Islamic conception of the world. The Islamic conception of the world is monotheistic, as we believe in Tawheed. Islam has presented monotheism and its purest form from Islamic point of view. We believe in monotheism, and Shaykh Mutahari says that we believe in the purest form of the monotheism, because many religions and many schools of thought, claim that they are monotheists. Even, Christians, by three lords, they always talk, they consider themselves monotheists, and Jewish people as well. For Islamic point of view, Allah has no luck. He starts to talking about the elements of the Islamic conception of the world. Yes, for now, we have not proved this. Yes, we will, inshallah, raise the arguments on this very important issue in the future. It would be the next session, inshallah. But for now, as I said before, we're talking about the imagination. What is Islam? What is the monotheistic worldview? Allah has no like of him, and nothing can be compared to him. There is nothing like him. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, in the chapter 42, verse 11, in the Surah Ash-Shura. It is a very famous ayah, famous verse there. Allah is absolutely independent. All depend on him, but he depends on none. Because in the Old Testament and other scriptures from some schools of thought, like especially for the Jewish people, they sometimes have a conception of God which is always chained and can do nothing. That famous story of the fight between God and the Noah. God forbid, astaghfirullah. And then that he could beat the God and God do something, and things like that. And these imaginations filled the minds of very many of the people. This is why Shaykh Mutahari, other book, says one of the major problems in this materialistic world and this materialistic ideas is the followers of some religions and their conceptions. It raised many problems. Here he says Allah is absolutely independent. All depend on him, but he depends on none. You are in need of Allah, and Allah, he is absolute laudable. أنتم الفقراء إلى الله والله هو الغني الحميد, chapter 35, verse 15. Allah is aware of everything. He can do whatever he likes. He is fully aware of everything. بكل شيء وهو بكل شيء عليم. He is able to do all things. قادر على كل شيء. Allah is everywhere, every place. Whether it is above, please, it is beautiful. Allah is everywhere, every place. Whether it is above the sky or in the depth of the earth, has the same relation to him. To whatever direction we stand, we face him. A very beautiful verse of Quran. Very beautiful verse of Quran. One of the most beautiful, things that I've ever heard. Wherever you turn, there is Allah's countenance. فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. So God is not somewhere in the sky or somewhere in the earth. Anywhere you look, anywhere you turn your face, there will be God. And inshallah, if we have this tawfiq, we will talk about the intellectual aspect of this conception. How can this be possible? Everywhere you can find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Please, I will send this book to you. This page is very beautiful, very beautiful. Allah knows what is in the hearts of the people. He is aware of their intentions and aims. Look at this verse. Indeed, we have created man and we know what his soul whispers. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ. In the chapter 50, verse 16, very beautiful. We have created the man, and we know what's going on in his heart. We know even the whispers between him and his soul. So everything it's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is closer to man than his jugular vein. We are nearer to him than his jugular vein. وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. Surah Al-Qaf, chapter 50, verse 16. Allah has all the good attributes and is free from every defect. Allah's are the fairest names. وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى. With more respect, Allah is not material organism and cannot be seen with eyes. It's very important for the next step. Allah is not just some materialistic object. No, Allah is not a material organism and cannot be seen with eyes. Vision does not comprehend him, but he comprehends all vision. Anyone can recite the Arabic translation of this verse? Anyone can tell me? Vision does not comprehend him, but he comprehends all vision. Are you there? Just tell me if you're there.
Yes.
I don't want you to recite. Can you recite it? Visions does not comprehend him. لا تدركه الأبصار وهو يدرك الأبصار. Chapter 6, verse 103. A very beautiful verse. لا تدركه الأبصار. You cannot see him by eyes, but he can see the eyes and the visions. He can comprehend all the visions. Vision does not comprehend him, but he comprehends all visions. From the standpoint of monotheistic and Islamic conception of the world, I'm reading this part of the text. The universe, please, is a creation and is looked after by divine will and attention. It's not just a deserted, left universe, as many people believe. You're familiar with that theory of the clockmaker God, the God who just have, made the clock. The universe is a creation, is looked after by divine will and attention. If divine attention were withheld for a moment, even a moment, the whole universe would be annihilated in no time. So even a blink of eye, even a moment, if divine attention were withheld from this world, it will all fall apart, will be annihilated. This world has not been created in vain or in jest. There are many advantages implied in the creation of man and the world. Nothing has been created unbecoming and futile. The existing system of the universe is the best and the most perfect. This has another argument, inshallah, we will get to it. It manifests justice and truth and is based on a sequence of causes and effects, a chain of causes and effects. Every result is a logical consequence of a cause, and it's so beautiful. Nothing is accidental or coincidence. It's all, there is a very logical relation between everything that is happening now in this world. From our brother who is sick now, and we and us, staying in our home, and others walking everywhere and everyone. There is a relation. This is not to be meant a coincidence. There is no coincidence in this world. This is why that every time, brothers and sisters, when we believe in Islam, every time we see the universe and we talk about the universe, always, we see that everything, it's in a delicate balance. Everything is relevant. So anything happens to me, if it wasn't by my mistake or by my bad intention, it's some message of God, some sign of God, and inshallah we will prove it, just to elevate me, just to show me some secrets of this life, just to tell me you're not alone, you're not deserted, you're not left alone in the sickness, in the trials, in the turbulences, in the problems. We see that and we have that. So this was a brief conception of what Shaykh Mutahari wanted to say, and there are 2-3 paragraphs, but I'm gonna skip West. So Shahid Mutahari says this is a logical, a spiritual, understanding of the world. This is the monotheistic worldview. And we will, inshallah, Shaykh Mutahari says after that every regulation, every law in Islam is according to this monotheistic worldview, is according to this Tawheedi conception and understanding. So when we, inshallah, talk about the prayers and fasting and marriage and many social and individual laws and constitutions and verdicts in the Islam, inshallah, we will comprehend that these laws all are in one system. There is one system. There is a geometry of understanding that is all is based on Tawheed and monotheism. So it's not just a world separated from God, and God has created the world and left the world and left it to us. This is us now. We want to do anything we want to do. Make this world. No, it's not correct. In every detail, in every moment, in every second, in every day and night of our life, we have to feel the very existence of God. Shaykh Mutai says, if for a moment, for a blink of eye, he leaves us, everything will fall apart. Everything will be annihilated. So the first thing to be aware is that monotheistic worldview is so important to know that there is a relevant system here. The second step, and inshallah we will go back to this monotheistic worldview in the next session when we want to prove the existence of God. After that, we will talk about the results of our arguments, inshallah. The next step, so look at the steps. The first, we talked about the geometry of the Islamic worldview, as I talked about it in the last session. It was the first step. The second step, we wanted to say that if we discuss about the origin of the creation, this discussion is fully nature. It's based on our fitrah, and we talked about it. The third step was that we need to deny false imaginations and false pictures on the monotheism. And it was for the last session. And the fourth step, which is the first step of tonight, was to talk about the Quranic perception and worldview on the Tawheed, on the oneness of God, on the monotheism. And we need to, keep our distance with those people who claim to be monotheists, but their monotheism is something really, really horrifying. So if anyone wants to deny the monotheism or existence of God, so go and existence their God. But the God that we believe, which is the real God in this world, inshallah, and we will talk about it and prove it, this God has these attributes. This universe based on the Tawheed and created by this God has these attributes I told. The next step, which will be the fifth step of our discussion, will be a discussion concerning the science. Please tell me, any one of you who, I think all of you are, studying in college or the university. How many of you have studied the physics in the college or university? No problem. But every one of us are familiar with the scientific concepts. Today, one of the major arguments to reject the existence of God is science. And we all are aware about that. We have seen many debates all around the internet. You can find those people, Christopher Hitchens or Richard Dawkins or Stephen Hawking and people like them, who are, very eager to deny the existence of God or rejected by the so-called scientific evidences. For tonight, if we have time, I think even if we have 15 minutes, it will be enough, inshallah, for the first part of this discussion. It's so important, inshallah. I want you to focus on it, and in the next session, inshallah, we will continue this discussion. The science, in all its branches, in physics, chemistry, biology, and all other sciences, it just talks about the material world. It just talks about the matter. This is the science. Science concerns the experimental perception and the senses and feelings and theories based on that. and does not claim to talk about supernatural issues or transcendental worlds, and it's just concerning on material issues. The question is, can we have a scientific worldview or not? Please bear with me. Is it possible for anyone to just stick with a scientific worldview? A worldview just based on science? Look at this question. Here, this is the scientific worldview. If anyone wants to claim that my worldview, my conception on the universe is just based on science, he must admit that the only thing that is real is something that can be experienced in a lab or can be felt by our senses and feelings. So this is a philosophy of a person whose worldview is fully scientific. We have many scientists who do not follow the scientific worldview. The science is just a part of their perception. But here we have people who say that the only thing that is real in this world is something that can be experienced in a lab or can be justified based on science. So anyone who believes in this proposition, anyone who believes in this, he can easily deny the existence of God and reject the existence of God. So I have a question for you, and it's for the first time I'm asking this kind of questions, and I'm posting this into the chat room, okay? So you see the sentence. Can anyone have any rejection on this? Any one of you? What's wrong with this philosophy, with this theory that I just believe in things that can be experienced through lab or by feelings? Can you raise any rejection on this proposition to start? Or just leave it for the next session for you to think? Are you still alive? Are you thinking? Oh, Alhamdulillah. Very good. So I prefer to leave it for the next session. Look, this is the proposition. This is the philosophy that says that the only thing that is real is something that can be experienced in a lab or can be felt. Okay, we can feel that thing. Anything except these things cannot be certainly accepted as a fact, as a reality. So we can build our worldview on this, and you see that in the grand that famous book of Stephen Hawking, the Grand Design, which was published on 2008, I think. I guess 2008. I guess he raises this argument and says, I could describe the whole universe by science, so there is no need for God. At first, he would say that I'm not denying the existence of God, but I just say that everything can be explained without God. Then he said, yes, I am an atheist, and I reject the existence of God, and I can explain everything in this universe by science. So the question for the next session, inshallah, and post it, send it to the other participants who are absent tonight, just this, that can you think on it and give me a proper answer? And if you may be, you may agree with this proposition, I don't know, but if you do not agree, please write or have a proper logical rejection on this sentence, on this proposition, and on this philosophy. So for this session, so we leave, as I guess it's better to leave the next discussion about the science and its relation with the Tawheed, which is a important discussion here. Leave it for the next session, and inshallah you will be I will be pleased if you think on this, and inshallah give me proper answers. And it's just a beginning. I didn't do that in the last sessions because I didn't want to bother you. But um, in a class like this, in a session like this, is in which have which has this philosophical arguments and discussions, it cannot be one-sided. I need to hear what you say, and I'm really yes, very good. I'm really interested that you can engage into this discussion because it's just not a member. Just I'm on the pulpit reciting something, and then rose it, and you cry and supplication, and then we go to our meals. Okay, the everything is everything is ready. Okay, but this is a I don't want to name this class. All of you, alhamdulillah, are teachers, good people, great people on this. But it's a session that concerns many philosophical discussions. So we need to engage into these discussions, and it cannot be one-sided. So for the for the next session, inshallah, I will hear your opinions first on this, and then inshallah we will talk about it more. And inshallah, at the end of the session, inshallah, I hope that something very good will happen, inshallah. If we pass this question and reject it, it will be very fruitful for us. Many of this, rubbish discussions about the existence of God and rejecting the existence of God will be, annihilated. Nothing for us. But we need to raise our arguments, and we need to have loud voices, and we need to talk about this. Now, all around the YouTube, now you see people are denying based on this, worthless arguments. And many people are trying to answer them and reject their ideas with other worthless arguments. So, inshallah, in the next session, we will talk about this.